The recording for this webinar will be sent out after the webinar concludes. All right, so I am Joanne Backrack. I am the Training Delivery Manager for PTC's KEPware Group. And as I said, today we will be discussing KEPServerEX, the version 6.1 release. We have a lot of exciting information to share with you today, but before we get started, I want to reiterate, you will receive an email with a PDF of the slides and a link to the webinar recording within a few days of this broadcast. So if for whatever reason your colleague couldn't make it, you can send that to them and they can see the webinar recording. Also, for all of these webinars, if you ever register for them but can't actually make the live broadcast, you'll still receive that recording for anybody who's registered. The recordings for these are also posted on our YouTube channel and on our video page on our website. And if you're interested in upcoming webinars, you can visit our product training page. All right, so our agenda for today, I'm going to do a brief introduction to the KEPware Group and to our product KEPServerEX, very brief in case there's anybody on the line that's not super familiar with it, and then dive right into what's the enhancements and features in 6.1. So brief introduction here. KEPware's been around since 1995. We were established in Maine in the US. And we started in traditional manufacturing automation, but kind of expanded across all different types of industries. And we're basically this ubiquitous communications platform. We were acquired by PTC in 2016, which is a global provider of technology platforms and solutions. Really nice fit there because their software complements ours. So they have CAD for 3D design, they have product lifecycle management, solution lifecycle management software, and really great new IoT technology through their platform ThingWorks, which we'll actually discuss a little bit today. So very exciting partnership there, and it will further kind of KEPware's IT initiatives, like I said, that we'll discuss in a moment. So all of our KEPware functionality is the flagship product here, and the cornerstone of our functionality is based on a product called KEPServerEX. Everything you purchase from KEPware, if it's a driver, if it's our IoT Gateway for connecting to a web platform or Azure or AWS, it's packaged in the single product called KEPServerEX. So we package up in that one piece of software over 150 different type of drivers for communicating controllers, PLCs, databases, so on. And then we have a ton of different interfaces. We have traditional type of OPC interfaces and Microsoft interfaces like DDE. We have ODBC for, again, database connections, proprietary protocols, and then our new IoT solutions, which include RESTful interfaces for connecting via HTTP or MQTT. So a lot of exciting stuff going on there, all wrapped up in this very powerful software bundle. We're very heavily tested. We outperform in all kinds of third-party validation tests, and we really hammer on the software before we send it out the door. So it's known for really robust reliability. So that's just my little brief plug for the company and the software there. And before I dive into the much more specific material for the 6.1 release, I want to know how much experience do you have with KEPServerEX for industrial connectivity? So I'm going to launch another poll question here. And I want you to rate your experience from 1 to 5, 1 being no experience and 5 being you're an expert. So how much experience do you have with KEPServerEX? 1, 0 experience, no experience whatsoever, and a 5 being you're an expert. Take a moment to answer that, and that'll give me a good idea of where everybody stands as we move through the webinar. Now I do see there's already questions about what's coming up on the agenda from Aaron Snyder, and so I am going to address that question about the CODESYS driver. I'm going to address that when we get to that portion of the presentation. Okay, great. So looks like most of you have voted. Going to leave the poll open for just a moment longer. So vote in the poll if you got a chance, and then we'll close that out. Let me share this with you guys. It looks like we got a nice bell curve going on. Majority of you have at least a little bit of experience in the 2 to 3 range with KEPServerEX. Some of you are complete beginners, that's fine, and some of you would rate yourselves as experts, so that's great. So I'll keep the content at like that medium range, mid-level knowledge range for those people on the call who have some experience but maybe aren't experts, and hopefully be able to make everybody happy there. All right, thanks for answering that question. So, first thing we're going to talk about is functional enhancements. So there was definitely some incremental work that went on with this 6.1 release. We had our big splash 6.0 release last fall, and now this is the next release since we did that major upgrade. So just some incremental work, which is by no means negligible. Allen Bradley ControlLogic's Ethernet driver, we continue to update that, make sure it's compatible with the most recent firmware, so now it supports firmware versions 29 and 30. And same thing with system support. We're now compatible with Windows Server 2016. So not saying previous versions weren't compatible, but now it's fully tested, fully verified. So great enhancements there. Now this is really exciting, talking about our OPC UA Client Driver. So we made a big change in 6.0 to our OPC UA functionality where we were using a third-party OPC UA stack, and then we decided to recreate that all in-house ourselves. So our development teams work really hard, got it validated by the OPC Foundation, and that way now we can layer in enhancements to our OPC UA functionality really easily and get you, the customers, some really great new OPC UA functionality without being dependent on third-party stack. So that was 6.0. So now in 6.1, here's our first rollout of some functional enhancements for our OPC UA client driver. Two really important enhancements, and I'll explain why they're important in a moment, but we support structured data types and the nano profile. So, and just some background on the OPC UA client driver, what it allows you to do is set up a channel device tag in KEPServerEX and use KEPServerEX as an OPC UA client in order to communicate to any other OPC UA servers you might have, and those include servers that could be embedded on devices. So that's kind of the positioning here and the reason why OPC UA Client Driver is a really neat product. So for structured data types, the idea here is that there's these structured data types that might exist in a data source. They could be a structure of scalar and array, simple types, enumerations, all put together in what we call a complex structure. And so prior to this release, we might have not been able to appropriately pull in that full structure. And now we fully support structured data types. We pull in that structure and we parse them out to separate tags within KEPware, so it's fully accessible. Now this is exciting because you might say, okay, whatever, I don't care as much about OPC UA complex objects. However, there's devices out there on the market that support OPC UA embedded on that device that we now fully support because of structured data types. That includes the B&R X20 series, as well as Siemens S7 1500. So Siemens has new initiatives, you may have heard, to start embedding OPC UA and use OPC UA natively on their devices. S7 1500 device, family of devices, is the first one they've rolled out to do that. And because we support structured data types, we now also officially support symbolic addressing through OPC UA for Siemens S7 1500. So this is great because before, if you were just using our regular Siemens drivers, Siemens Ethernet drivers, you could get data blocks and so on and so forth, but you couldn't pull in those symbolic addresses because Siemens actually had no official way to do that through their native S7 protocol. Now they've exposed that symbolic addressing through OPC UA. It's sanctioned by Siemens, so if you're using our OPC UA client driver, you can pull that data in. And obviously Siemens plans to support this on their controllers and any family of controllers that they roll out in the future. So it's definitely planning for the future as well. In order to enable the market to use this new OPC UA functionality with S7 1500 devices, we've rolled out a new Siemens Plus suite. So that's all of our Siemens drivers plus the OPC UA client driver. If you already are running the Siemens Plus suite, there's upgrade pricing available so that you can get that new OPC UA functionality. So really exciting stuff, definitely something we've seen coming and have talked about. If you're familiar with OPC and OPC UA, we've talked about this for a while coming in the market, and it's finally coming around the bend, and that's exciting. All right, so the other thing about OPC UA is we now support the OPC UA Nano profile. So this is a little different than what we're talking about with the S7 1500 and the BNR devices embedding OPC UA. Nano is a much more stripped down version of the OPC UA protocol, and it's intended for chip level devices that have really limited resources. So they're not necessarily running a full-fledged OS. Or they don't have like bulky memory. So due to these resource limitations that support this nano profile, they don't have things like subscription or monitor items or security layered in. So stripped down version of the UA protocol that KEPServerEX now supports. We actually don't necessarily have a list of any vendors that are currently using the nano profile, either hardware vendors or vendors like us who are supporting it through their OPC UA connectivity. So really what we did this for, supporting the nano profile, is to future-proof our systems, right? We support the nano profile, so as UA gets picked up more and more in the market, and as people use the nano profile and implement the nano profile, if you have KEPServerEX in the UA Client Driver, you're already being enabled to use it. So imagine, OPC UA Nano profile being embedded on an Arduino device or Raspberry Pi device, or the equivalent for those devices which are hardened for industry. You can access that using KEPServerEX and the OPC UA Nano profile. So really exciting there. All right, so I just want to get a heartbeat here. Who on the call is actually using a Siemens S7 1500 PLC or BNR X20 PLC? Are you actually using these in production? So would you potentially find these updates useful? If you are not, but you are using something with OPC UA embedded, just let us know through chat. So it would be very interesting for us to see if you're using OPC UA in some other format outside of these PLCs in production. So I'll leave that poll open for a moment and see what you say. Are you currently using a Siemens S7 1500 PLC or BNR X20 in production? And obviously the answer, or the pro would be that if you are, you can use this new OPC UA client connectivity to connect. All right, looks like the majority of you voted, so I'm going to share that. Now, this is as I expected. It looks like majority of you no, but a few of you yes, so that's great to see. And again, if you are, you can leverage that functionality. Great, I'm going to hide this and move on. All right, so moving down the list as far as functional enhancements, IoT Gateway. So for those of you not familiar with the IoT Gateway, the IoT Gateway was introduced in the fall of 2015, and this was KEPServerEX's first foray into APIs and connectivity that was truly outside of like the Microsoft realm, so outside of OPC DA, DDE-based protocols like what's used with Wonderware or like the GEIFix type of protocols, and truly more IT focused. So REST server, REST client interfaces which support HTTP, so you can get data over a web page, MQTT, which is meant for publish subscribe type of data transfer, and then of course ThingWorks using the always on protocol, and that's all meant to support these new IoT platforms for big data analytics and some really compelling stuff that's going on in the IoT space. So like I said, we introduced that in 2015, and in this release we're just continuing to enhance that and improve it. Now we support explicit reads over REST to force a read down to the device, so you can ensure that the device is truly connected over that HTTP connection. And our MQTT agent now supports certificates, which means it's compatible with Amazon Web Services. So if you have an Amazon server, you can actually get KEPServerEX data into an app or something you might be running on AWS. So that's really exciting. We did support connections to AWS before, but just doing the security and managing the certificates wasn't built in, so it was a little extra legwork you had to do, but now that's all rolled into the server, so very exciting. Also, the IoT Gateway is now supported over something we call the Configuration API, which I will explain more in a second. So moving on to the Config API, which is a new feature that was introduced in KEPServerEX v6. So in v6, we introduced this API, which is meant to do CRUD, create, read, update, and delete, of channel device, and tag objects in the server. So if you wanted to basically have a web dashboard, like the example code you see in the slide here, which is actually available for download from our website, if you wanted, instead of having to RDP into the machine where KEPware is installed, or actually physically be on that machine, if you want to just have a web page and manage one server or multiple instances of server from a web page, you can do that with this config API and with this example code. So here you can see, we might be adding a control objects device or adding tags or deleting tags or what have you. So that was introduced in 6.0. That was actually a huge new feature of 6.0. Now, we only supported the connectivity piece, so channel device tags, through that config API for 6.0, and we didn't support other plugins except for the scheduler plugin for that release. So we didn't support the IoT Gateway and our IoT API configuration through that. But now with 6.1, we do support the CRUD, create, read, update, and delete of those IoT Gateway objects. So you can be remote and say, hey, I want to set up a new REST server agent in the IoT Gateway so that this set of data from my KEPware server is going to now be exposed over this port. So I can hit it with a web page because I want to spin up this new REST server from KEPware so that I can create a dashboard, on my CFO's, tablet, so they can see everything that's going on from their perspective, or plant manager or whatever, what have you. So really cool update there, continuing to support our IoT initiatives. So another thing with the config API, and this is outside the IoT Gateway, is that, again, we supported the CRUD of those different objects in the configuration in your projects, but we actually didn't support reading the event log from KEPware. So you guys probably, if you've used KEPware before, you're familiar with the event log, which displays in the bottom of the configuration window that I have a screenshot of here. It just tells you informational stuff, like if a device is down, if something is set to a demo timer, if you can't request a set of registers or something like that. So we couldn't get that in 6.0 up through the API, and now we can't. So now we can get that data from the event log up over the API, and you can read that remotely. So definitely a huge win for people who want to troubleshoot remotely and be able to kind of get eyes into their KEPware installs without, again, needing to RDP or physically being on that system. Great. So rolling right on, more functional enhancements, believe it or not. Even though this was an incremental 6.1 release, there's tons of stuff rolled up in here. And one major thing we did is with our ThingWorks interface. So if you haven't heard of ThingWorks before, it's a great product. It's an IoT platform, and it's extremely flexible. And KEPServerEX supported the native ThingWorks interface for always-on protocol as early as v5.21. But now in v6.1, we've kind of vastly improved that. So the idea with ThingWorks is it's this IoT platform. It can be hosted in the cloud. It can be hosted on-premise. And it's different from like a traditional SCADA or an HMI in that you can do really advanced stuff, and you can fully customize it. It's very flexible. You make cool dashboards, but you can do things like machine learning, anomaly detection, advanced analytics, and so on. So it's a really cool product. There is some freemium apps coming out in the next few months, so you can get hands-on with ThingWorks, and specifically the ThingWorks connection to KEPware, to play around with it and do things like overall equipment effectiveness evaluations and so on and so forth. So look for that in the next few months. Anyway, with ThingWorks, basically through that always-on connection, through that native connection, it's sucking up, it has the ability to suck up all this data through KEPware and KEPServerEX. So think of it like a big data pool or data lake. It's sucking up all this data, and what we want to do in the ThingWorks platform is parse that data out and assign it to things, what they call entities, that represent different assets on your plant floor. So maybe you have a conveyor belt or a compressor asset, and you're going to take data that's streaming in from KEPware that might be streaming in from a PLC and bind it to these entities in ThingWorks to represent those different conveyor and compressor and robot and whatever assets you have out on the plant floor. And then once you define those assets, or what we call model those entities in ThingWorks, you can then say, okay, let's do some machine learning. Let's learn what the conveyor's normal state is, and then if it goes outside of that normal operating state, we'll do some anomaly detection and generate an alarm. So some really cool new things with this IoT platform available. So what we did in 6.1 was address the problem that we had no support for really doing this bulk item handling or browsing. So we were able to get data through that always-on interface, but we needed to streamline how that data was brought in. So we're running on a CSDK to implement that always-on protocol, and we vastly improved that so that there's a bigger pipeline and more data can be pushed through up to the ThingWorks platform. And then on the ThingWorks side, they created an industrial gateway and this Discover navigation tool, which just like you would expect with any type of OPC platform, now with this ThingWorks platform, this IoT platform, you can browse through the server, see your channel devices and tags, and attach those to assets. And I'll actually show you that in a demo in a second. So the benefits of this: seamlessly mapping data, creating those assets, and streaming the data in a very robust way. So streamline mapping, modeling, data updating, and the whole end goal of this is to make it easier for you out there who maybe are just beginning to think about IoT and kind of have it on your radar, or maybe you have an active IoT initiative. Maybe it's just something you think is a buzzword and you don't really know what it's all about, but you're interested. So if you're a control engineer, manufacturing IT, app developer, if you just want to quickly develop a proof of concept and do that quickly with these new intuitive tools, that's what this whole improvement for 6.1 and ThingWorks version 7.4 is meant, just to get you enabled and up and quickly doing it. And again, there'll be some free apps you can experiment with pulling data from KEPServerEX into ThingWorks, available in a few months. All right, so let's get into the demo here. All right, so here I have KEPware. It's connected through the ThingWorks native interface. You can see it's connected just to a ThingWorks platform I have installed on my local machine. So if I double click on the project here, you can see there's all our old, legacy, and new OPC interfaces, but now we have this ThingWorks interface there that again was available since v5.21. So by default this is disabled, so if you pulled this up on your machine, you'd see that it was not enabled, so I set this to yes, and then I just pointed it towards the ThingWorks instance on my local host. I have this in a lower security mode. By default it's set to a higher security mode, so all these are set to no, so it doesn't trust all certificates and it doesn't disable encryption, but just for the sake of ease of the demo I set these all to yes, so it is running in a little lower security mode here. So the most important things to take note of here are the application key and this thing name. The application key I generated from my ThingWorks instance here. So this is the ThingWorks, what we call Composer. This is basically the UI you use to configure the ThingWorks platform. And I have an application key I created, and I just need to copy that key ID and put it into the application key field here, which I already did to enable this demo. Put it into the application key here in order to get that running. So that's how security is handled, and that's how we know, we have a secure connection to the platform there. The other thing to note here is this thing name. So in the platform here, I'm going to go ahead and go to Browse, and I'm going to create a new thing in the ThingWorks platform. And I'm going to call this KEPServerEX ABC. I'm going to copy that name. And then I'm going to use what's called a template. So I'm creating this model or this entity in the platform basically to consume my KEPware data, consume my KEPServer data. And before we just used what was called a remote thing template in order to do this. But with v6.1 we now have this custom industrial gateway, which just seamlessly enables KEPware to connect in and do the things like I was talking about, like that bulk data handling. So this is new as of 6.1, this industrial gateway. So if I save that and let that chug, so now I have KEPServerABC. I'm going to put that same thing name into here. And then you'll see now I'm connected to ThingWorks KEPServerEX ABC. And if I get back into ThingWorks here and I go to my industrial connection, if I pull this drop down, you see I now have this discover option. It wouldn't have been there before. And boom, all my data there. I can browse all the data available through Kepware and add those as items to my ThingWorks platform. So I'm going to select these two tags. I'm going to select bind to new entity. I'm just going to call this my conveyor entity. So maybe those two tags represent RPMs, and maybe like a read-write Boolean that lets me stop or start the conveyor belt. And those are the two tags I want to bring in and use for my to model for my conveyor asset. So you see we're using an industrial thing shape as an implemented shape, and that's also new in 6.1 and ThingWorks version 7.4. And what that'll allow me to do is suck in those two tag items from KEPServerEX. So again, save this. And now that I've saved that, I can pull this drop down, go to properties, and you'll see there's my two tags coming in. So I can refresh that. We see tag 1 is a ramp tag, it's going up, and tag 2 here, I can write it, and this is just a read-write tag. Let's say that, and there we go. So really cool functionality there. You know, just mapping tags into ThingWorks. Again, if you have little experience with this, you know, you can see it was pretty simple for me to get that connection up and going. And once you get that connection going, sky's the limit as far as developing your own custom dashboards and that sort of thing. One thing I do want to note before I move on to the next part of the demo here is that if you click on this channel 1, device 1, tag 1, if I go down in here, this is where I see my scan rate. So that's how fast you're asking the server to scan data from your devices. And very similar to maybe the scan rate you might specify from OPC. And then the push type is push based on value change. So basically that means if the value changes or the quality changes, we will get an update to the platform. You can change this to always push, so every second you're always getting an update. And for arrays, you will need to set it to always push to work with arrays. So that's just one little caveat there. Okay. One last thing I want to show you before I move on from ThingWorks. We've gotten the tags in our system, everything's great, but what am I going to do from there now that I see the tags in my system? I just want to show you a little demo I have running here. This is a demo that our application engineers built of a wind farm. And so this is actually data streaming in from Kepware. I have a Kepware project here with a bunch of simulated Allen Bradley and Siemens devices. Streaming in data is actually going through the IOT Gateway in this instance, through the ThingWorks connection there. And it's streaming up to the platform, and I can see I'm getting data, and I can actually drill down and see, okay, here are my different wind farms. Turbine 4 is down, and then I can drill into turbine details here and see, you know, different specs for each individual one at that specific field. So, you know, this is a wind farm example. You could see how that might apply maybe in other scenarios you might have. Really cool dashboard, and this is what we call mashup in ThingWorks. So this was all built in ThingWorks as far as remote monitoring. And again, it's just based, you know, simple web page here that I have set up. So I just want to show you kind of a wow factor of like what can you do with this platform if you are pulling in data and want to build these type of custom apps. All right. Sweet. So we're not going to get out of this section without a poll question. So would you be interested in using this ThingWorks IoT platform in your current environment? Now that we've talked about it a little bit, I've showed you the capabilities, I showed you, you know, what's possible. Would you be interested? So a few different options. Yes, if you want to develop your own custom apps. Yes for an out-of-the-box, OOTB is out-of-the-box, role-based apps. So you don't want to develop custom apps, but you'd rather have something out of the box that, say, is built for a controls engineer or built for a production manager, and just use that off the shelf, out of the box. The next option is yes for machine learning, anomaly detection, so on. This is multiple choice, so you can answer yes to more than one. Yes for something else, or no, not at this time. We had some questions about the speed of ThingWorks updating data and scan rate. So the scan rate I showed from the ThingWorks platform is per second, Douglas. And Michael asked, how fast can ThingWorks update tag data? So Michael, right now we have specs. We're confident to say you can do at least 10,000 tags on one single asset or piece of or entity that you have defined in the platform at a 1 second rate easily. Or if, say, you have 100 assets defined, each with 100 items attached, you can do the 1 second rate. We can handle sub-second rates, no problem there. But if you have those types of questions and you want to develop a proof of concept, just let us know and we can definitely help you test it out and give you more specific specs. Okay. All right, great. So everybody, it looks like a lot of people answered that question, and I'm going to share that. So about a third of you said no, not at this time, but the rest of you said yes. So that's great. Majority of you said yes, you could use this some way. A lot of you are interested in that machine learning and anomaly detection and advanced analytics. Some of you said, you know, you definitely want to do out of the box, and almost equal percentage said, you know what, I want to try something custom. So great to see that, and if you're interested in that, you can always contact us to get more information. So since ThingWorks, this whole ThingWorks connectivity is a pretty new thing, I want to give you some ThingWorks resources. You can go to ThingWorks.com, obviously. They have a great open online course through Udemy. It's free to take, called ThingWorks Fundamentals. That dashboard that I showed you, that window mode dashboard, our AEs, our application engineers, were able to develop just by taking that course. So it could basically empower you to do everything you need to do with the ThingWorks platform if you take that fundamentals course. And then we do have a blog that explains KEPServerEX and ThingWorks integration a little bit further and kind of goes in a little more detail of what I said if you're interested in learning more there. So all those resources available. Great, so that's it for functional enhancements. Huge bucket of functional enhancements and incremental enhancements that we did in 6.1 there. But now, very exciting, we have a new driver for 6.1, the new CODESYS Ethernet driver, and this is what someone was asking about previously. So for those of you who don't know, CODESYS is a programming language or software that's utilized by a number of device manufacturers and hardware vendors. So the idea here is you're a hardware vendor, you're making this great piece of hardware, but you don't necessarily want to develop your own protocol and programming code from scratch to enable people to program logic in your PLCs as well as communicate with them. So the idea here is you just take this open source programming software from CODESYS and embed it on your device. So it's designed as an API and sold as a stack that hardware vendors can purchase so that they don't have to do that code development from scratch. There's quite a few vendors that use it, and we'll get to that in a second, but typically the vendors we've found that use it are in packaging, pharma, and food and bev. So if you're in any of those industries, chances are that you are probably using that something that uses embedded CODESYS or that CODESYS stack. So here pictured, you actually see the Vago PLC. They're a popular vendor that uses the CODESYS stack, as well as Schneider Motion, formerly Elau, Lens, and Eton, all use that CODESYS functionality. So basically means we're compatible with that list of vendors now. We provide, through the CODESYS driver that we've put out, this seamless integration with the CODESYS API, and that is based on CODESYS 2.3. So there was a question earlier, there is an external dependency there on the CODESYS API. running CODESYS 2.3. There is CODESYS 3.0, and we do have plans for future releases to support CODESYS 3.0. So yeah, so great new driver there. Pretty straightforward. You know, we support CODESYS, but packaged in that one driver comes a bunch of new manufacturers of hardware and vendors of hardware and hardware families that we can support. All right. There's a new web page up. There's a new CODESYS datasheet. There's a new CODESYS manual. So tons of information if you want to learn more there. So short and sweet for that, but it is exciting to have a new driver under our belt. All right, now last but not least, performance enhancements for Mitsubishi and Omron drivers. So this is actually huge, especially for markets where Mitsubishi and Omron are used heavily, like in Asia Pacific and Europe, AMEA. So Mitsubishi Ethernet, we significantly improved read and write throughput and speed by implementing new block size improvements. So now we can do batch read and batch writes. We were pretty performant before, but now this just bumps up the speed even more so that we're outstripping our competition and really performing well against any competitive offerings for the Mitsubishi drivers. We also now officially support the Q&A and L series, so that's been thoroughly tested and thoroughly vetted. So great new enhancements for Mitsubishi there. Omron NJ, same story. So we support now something called multivariable monitoring, or MVM, which enables this bulk variable data handling for the Omron family of devices. And again, we support the new family, or the newest update of the Omron devices, the NX family. So we've fully vetted that, fully tested that, and support those new family of devices through the Omron NJ Ethernet driver. So summary here, like I said, huge list of functional enhancements, new CODESYS Ethernet driver, and those performance enhancements we just discussed. I do want to note here that even though we only list one new driver in this release, there's actually lots of new vendor and hardware compatibility rolled into 6.1. So OPC UA Client Driver, you get Siemens S7 1500 UA, and you get BNR X20 devices through UA. CODESYS Ethernet Driver, you get lots of vendors that support CODESYS, like Vago and Eton and so on. And then with the Mitsubishi and Omron improvements, you get Mitsubishi Q&A, Mitsubishi L series, and Omron NX. So even though you know, it's just listed as the one new driver, you get you know, over 5 or 6 new actual hardware compatibility options with this release. So really good job, really bravo to our development team for all the hard work they put into this release. So I have to ask, final question of the day, final poll question here, the most important one really. After watching everything, what features or enhancements of KEPServerEX version 6.1 would you find the most useful? So either you're going to implement them, or you could see yourself implementing them in the future, or you're just really jazzed about it, like I am. OPC UA Client Driver enhancements, Config API and IoT Gateway, ThingWorks interface enhancements, CODESYS Ethernet driver, or those performance enhancements for Mitsubishi. Again, this is a multiple choice or multiple select poll question, so you can select anything and everything that interests you. If there's anything I mentioned or talked about during the webinar that's not on this list, feel free to enter it in chat or in your questions pane, because we'd be interested to see what, you know, what's really exciting for you, because we're always interested in getting a pulse on our customers and on the market and understanding what's most important to you, and that can drive our development going forward. So leave that poll question again open for just a little bit longer. What features or enhancements of KEPServerEX version 6.1 would you find the most useful? OPC UA, Config API, ThingWorks native interface, CODESYS, performance enhancements. Great. Great, and there's questions coming through. We're about to get into the Q&A period, so I'll just start answering those live online here in a second. Let me just close out this poll and share it with you. So really exciting. Looks like a lot of you find the OPC UA Client Driver enhancements, the majority of you, find that those would be useful. So really happy to see that. As well with the Config API and the IoT Gateway, you know, I'm a training delivery manager here, so I have to plug our training classes at this point, which we have a full hands-on lab module that covers the Config API and the IoT Gateway, how to get it set up, how to use that example code, and how to get connected to KEPware through those web pages and through the HTTP connections. So if you're interested in learning more on that, you can find out more about our training classes. Looks about like half of you are interested in that ThingWorks native interface enhancements, so that's great. Again, lots of ThingWorks resources if you want to get spun up and learn more about it. And then some people interested in CODESYS and Mitsubishi and Omron, so that's great. Okay, let me hide this. All right, so last little plug here. We will send out the recording of this webinar and the PDF of the presentation in a follow-up email. It's also going to be posted on YouTube. It's also going to be up on our video page, so you can access this anywhere, really. If you're interested in more training and you really want to dig into V6, our training is fully updated for V6. And we've updated modules. Like I said, we have a new IoT and web connectivity module that goes through ThingWorks and goes through the REST server type of interfaces in the config API. If that's of interest to you, check out our training online, and you can request to come to a class. Other webinars and videos up on our website. We have a LinkedIn page, so you can follow KEPware product training for updates on webinars and other events that we're doing, and obviously news and coverage and that sort of thing. So last little plug there. I'm going to open up for Q&A in a moment. Just want to put up our contact screen here. So if you have questions on any specific type of information, sales@kepware.com or training@kepware.com, we will get you in touch with the correct person to answer your question. So feel free to reach out to those emails or call us at any point for more information there. All right, so let's open it up to Q&A here. Let's see. In which product can we find the CODESYS driver? So I believe that's a question from Adrian. Yes, it's going to be included in our manufacturing suite. So if you have the manufacturing suite and you're under support, which is just a fraction of the price of the product, so you should be under support, you can upgrade for free. If you have the manufacturing suite, you will get that for free. So that's great. Adrian. If I have a device that is OPC UA and my client is OPC UA, what is the value, blah, blah, blah. Okay, yes. What is the value of KEPware in that instance? This is from Tim. That is a great question, Tim. This is actually something I get in class, and even new hires, people who are coming onboarding into our company, ask this type of question. So the answer here is that KEPware provides a single source, a single truth of data. So you could have a device that's OPC UA enabled, and you could have a client that's OPC UA enabled, and so you say, okay, well, I don't need a bridge like KEPware to bridge from OPC UA device to OPC UA client, and that's correct, you don't need that. However, I'm going to hazard a guess that the majority of people out there running in all different types of industrial environments, it's not as cut and dry as that, right? They have huge legacy systems to support. They have complicated infrastructure to support. They, invested maybe 5 or 10 years ago, invested in a bunch of equipment that doesn't support OPC UA, and they're not going to be ready to pull the trigger to upgrade to new devices that are OPC UA enabled anytime soon. And so that's what you get with KEPware, is that we can provide the new age OPC UA connectivity as well as bundle in anything else you have out there, whether it's a temperature sensor or an Allen Bradley Control Logix PLC or anything in between. We can support that. So that's kind of the idea there. And in my opinion, the market is moving more and more towards OPC UA for sure, but it's been slow going. It's been 8 years since the UA spec was released, and we're just now starting to see those devices come out. So it's still going to be slow going, and as in industry, and I'm sure many of you can see this in your own jobs, things tend to get more complex and more kind of spread out, and networks tend to get more convoluted as you progress instead of becoming simpler. So I think there's always going to be a need for something like KEPware software which can be that unified umbrella under which we can do all the connectivity, including OPC UA. So I hope that answered your question, Tim. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but that's my perspective there. Let's see. This is a great question from Michael Schultz. What class would you recommend for me to learn how to use the ODBC driver? Is it available as a trial download? So our ODBC driver allows you to connect to SQL databases, PostgreSQL databases, Oracle databases, and it allows you to do read, write, query, stored procedure execution on those databases. It is available for download, just like all of our software. It's available for download and runs on a 2-hour demo, which you can always restart and get another 2 hours. So you just go to our website for that. And Michael, we do have a webinar called Beyond Device Connectivity, and it is posted on our YouTube site that talks about our ODBC connectivity, and it's also a module we cover in our training class and do a live demo and show you how to get it configured. So if you come to our training class, you will also get that hands-on experience. Okay, let's see. This is a good question from Douglas. Upgrade costs from KEPServerEX 5 to V6 or whatever. Again, if you're under support, which you all should be because it's very minimal cost, you get upgrades for free. So if you're under support, no cost. If you're not under support, call our sales team. They will tell you what your options are, and hopefully we can get you upgraded for minimal costs to you. We shouldn't see any huge costs there. Question from Carlos. Can we make any data calculation from multiple tags in KEPware? Or do we need to use a SCADA system to do this, like adding 2 tags? So great question, Carlos. This will give me an opportunity to plug our advanced tags plugin. So if you get the advanced tags plugin, it is an extra fee. It does require an extra license. You can do those calculations. That's exactly what that advanced tag plugin is for. And again, we do have a webinar on advanced tags up on our website, and we also cover that in a module and go through an exercise in our regular training class for using that. Yeah, so this is an interesting question here. I'm going to butcher the name, but from Shrikant. Does the config API allow multiple users in read-write mode so multiple people can be making device and channel changes? So that's a great question. The config API uses a REST interface, which is stateless. So yes, you can have multiple read-write users, which basically what happens is when a user goes and executes an HTTP command to do different changes to the project, it connects, validates using username and password and whatever security you've layered in there, makes that change, and then disconnects because, again, REST is stateless, so it doesn't maintain that connection. And then another user can come in and do a change and so on and so forth. So not necessarily truly parallel, but you can have multiple people connected in that read-write mode. Will KEPServerEX work with SQL Server 2008? Yes. Okay, this is a interesting question from Paul. It was mentioned that 10K tags can be pulled every second for the ThingWorks interface. Does this limitation apply to all products like the ODBC plugin and local historian? Answer there, Paul, is no. Different limitations for different plugins. If you have those type of questions, call our sales team and we can get you the answers on what our performance and limitation, or our performance recommendations would be for those different modes. But the answer typically is it always depends on your environment. So what type of hardware you're running on. Do you have some beefy server OSs with lots of cores and with lots of RAM? Usually that can handle it. Good question from Pankaj. Who do we need to contact or what do we need to do for any driver enhancement? You can contact our product management team. And I'll also plug our website here. We do have a page up on our website where you can go to actually put in for enhancements requests. So I'll just go to our website here and I believe it's under products. Future releases. Yep, products, future releases. Here you can contact Kepware. This will go directly to our product management team. And then here's a list of everything we're evaluating. So if there's anything on this list that you're like, oh yeah, I definitely want that, submit a request and enter your information. Our PM team will get in contact with you, and you could even get involved in a beta there. So good question there, a nice way to plug our product management team, which handles the prioritization of those type of enhancements. Are there any changes, this is from Nick, are there any changes with communication to inductive automation's ignition in KEPServer 6.1? That's a good question, Nick. The answer there is no. So our OPC UA client-side interface still works the same as it did in 6.0, should work seamlessly with ignition, and no major changes there. See, I'm scanning through the questions here to see if there's ones that apply more to the general audience. Ooh, this is interesting from Maximo. Are you planning to add a feature that allows someone to put dynamic tags into a schedule? So if I'm kind of frequently changing which tags I'm reading, and I'm using what's called dynamic addressing, where I might read this tag one day because I'm running X recipe, and then that changes because now I'm running Y recipe, so now I'm reading a different set of data. Can I kind of on the fly change those tags dynamically and have them added to a schedule? So the answer would be yes, you can do that. That would be something you'd be doing through, that you would have to configure through like a SCADA system, or for example through ThingWorks. So if you have those types of questions, our applications engineering team, our tech sales team can help you out, develop proof of concept. That's a completely free service we provide. So contact sales@kepler.com and we can get you hooked up if you want to do, experiment with that type of information. Okay. This is an interesting question from Abdullah. Are you planning to add some self-diagnostics feature in Kepware? So Abdullah, we actually already have quite a few diagnostics features. And another little plug for the training class here, we have a full hands-on module on using diagnostics for troubleshooting in KEPServerEX in our training class. Walks through everything that's available to you, and we've gotten a lot of great feedback on that, people saying, I had no idea this type of functionality existed before, and now I'm able to pinpoint root cause, I'm able to trace all the data going through my system and do benchmarking and so on and so forth. So there's lots of self-diagnostics features in Kepware. There's system tags that you can read from any client. There's OPC diagnostics. There's channel and device diagnostics. And then there's third-party tools like Wireshark that you can use to debug things as well. So tons of stuff available. If you have those type of questions, again, you can contact our tech sales team. Okay, I think we're nearing the end. I'll have a few other questions that are kind of more specific. Question on any plans to automate Kepware installation, license, and activation transfer. The answer there is it is already automated. So license activation transfer in 6.0 is much more streamlined. It can be done all from the KEPServerEX license utility. No need to do that manually, Abdullah. And the Kepware installation can run in a silent mode. So if that's something you're looking for, running that installation automatically in a silent mode where you don't have to go through the wizard, contact our tech support teams and they can show you how that works. So again, in 6.0, all of that is set up and automated. Okay, I'm just going to browse through some of this previous questions. It looks like most of these were answered. I'm getting quite a few questions about VMs and virtualized systems. Any limitations there? Anything we should know about? VMs, you know, KEPServer sees a VM just like any regular host, and it can run seamlessly on a VM as long as you allocate the right resources. So you have enough RAM allocated, enough, you know, cores allocated for what you want to do through Kepware, then you're fine. It treats it like any other host, and there's no limitations for running Kepware on a VM. And we have many, many customers that run Kepware on VMs in production, even in like high availability environments, and that works very well for them. Great. All right, so questions are starting to taper off now. A couple last questions. Is there any way to know which clients are connected from Nilesh? Which clients are connected to Kepware? The answer is you can know how many are connected, but you cannot know like specifically their names. Like say you're connecting Ignition and you're connecting ThingWorks and you're connecting iFix Prophecy. I don't know why you would do that, but maybe you would. There's no way to say this is iFix and this is blah, 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 and this is blah, blah, blah. That's not, you don't have that granularity yet. So it's something that you would have to use some of our diagnostic tools to figure out. Any updates on ClientAce and its ability to work with Visual Studio 2015? Okay, good question, Casey. Yes. ClientAce has been updated to work with Visual Studio 2015. I believe that was as of 2016, as of last year. So you should be good to go. Download that from our website and it works with Studio 2015. I think that was as of like a year ago. Yeah. All right, cool. Looks like that's all the questions. If I miss anything, I'm sorry. We do comb through these questions after the webinar to see if we missed any and follow up with people. Really glad everybody was able to join, and thank you for answering all my pesky poll questions. And I hope everybody has a great rest of their day. All right.